Well, welcome to another Cutting Edge show. I am your host, Omar Neal. Don't forget this show is being brought to you in part by the School of Public Health at the University of Maryland. I am one of the hosts that will be doing this today. We are going to have a very, very interesting conversation. We're going to be talking about environmental injustice and understanding the causes and effects of the environment on health in marginalized communities. This is a conversation that has far-reaching implications, not only as it relates to health, but economics and politics and all of the other people activities. All are impacted by the environment. We got a wonderful group of people who will be joining with us. We have Attorney Crystal James. We have Lisa Pollyak, Dr. Ruby Perry, and Elise Torbett. All will be our special guest as we try to unpack environmental injustice in America. We've been doing this show for a little over 2 years now. We've done over over 100 shows, and we continue to grow. The cutting edge is just that. It's the cutting edge. It is the show that goes where many have never gone before. We break new ground so that we can address in a more in-depth way issues that impact primarily marginalized communities, but generally communities, all communities. I have my co-host, who is a brother from another mother. He is professor of the University of Maryland School of Public Health and director of the Maryland School of Health Equity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my dear friend, Dr. Stephen B. Thomas. Hey, man, how you doing? I can't hear you. You need to unmute, Doc.
Listen to me. Hey, Mayor, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you as well, man.
I'm thinking back to when we, kind of formalized the name of the show, The Cutting Edge. All things health and wellness beyond COVID. And I can't tell you how important that is. I now know more people in my personal and family network who have had COVID than in the entire time of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And yet all around us, everything's being relaxed. And so helping our community get the right information they need could not be a better time than right now. So you're right. We're on the cutting edge, all things health and wellness beyond COVID. And that would include monkeypox and today, environmental justice.
Right.
Environmental justice. The same people who face floods and fires and all kind of devastation due to nature are the same people suffering from COVID.
Absolutely. And so, again, we have just a wonderful lineup, but again, we do this, people see us, but they don't see the scene, the team behind the scene. And we have a great team. These are the people who orchestrate all of the things that you see on screen, but they orchestrate it behind the scene. Our technical director is headed up by Meg Jordan. She's our technical director. Maggie Daly, assistant technical director. Soraya Khan, a social media guru and communications person. We have Elijah Pugh Jr., sound designer, who is the one who put that sound together that I bob my head to each and every time. I can't help it, Doc.
Give you enough time, you'll be dancing to it.
Absolutely. We do this on all of our social media platforms as well. So it's important that we try to reach people wherever they are. So you can reach us on social media platforms. And our platforms are we?
Yeah, in fact, we're streaming live right now.
Okay, absolutely. Our platforms are Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And so you can make sure that you like, subscribe, share this show with your network. It's something that you will get something, I promise you. Each and every time you tune into the Cutting Edge, you're going to get something. You're going to come away with some new, insightful information, even things to which you have had conversations around. A lot of times we change it up and we give it a new twist. And so we do that. And we also keep it going with our newsletter. So we ask that you subscribe to our newsletter. That's the QR code that you can go there. We do highlights of our previous shows, as well as we upload the previous show. There's always information about COVID and all things health and wellness and beyond, right? We do all of that right on our newsletter. So make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter as well. Dr. T, man, you know, we oftentimes think about, you know, what's happening, and we're so inundated with COVID that sometimes we forget that there are other things that are impacted by this pandemic, and one is health in a lot of ways. You know, having had this time with you, I'm learning terminology like, you know, social determinants of health.
There we go.
You know, and all of that, and I realized that health is broader than just am I sick or am I not sick.
There you
right?
go.
Right. And what and how am I sick and what made me sick?
There you
right?
go.
Right. Those things are critically important. And that's what we're going to unpack today. The things that are in the environment that can create an illness for society. And that illness can manifest itself in many different ways. Right. And so we're going to talk about that on this segment of The Cutting Edge. All right. You want to meet our special guest today?
What a lineup we have.
Don't we have a wonderful lineup?
And I'm thinking, Mayor, as you were describing some of the things that we've seen that sometimes get framed as criminal justice, you know, the Freddie Gray death and arrest that you saw, you know, the underlying story is that before he was kind of beaten up by the law enforcement, he was beaten up by his home. He was in a home that had lead, and he was exposed to lead, and he was part of a class action lawsuit as a baby. And so this is an environmental issue even before COVID, and we're now seeing floods and all kinds of things happening in these same neighborhoods.
Yeah, and you know, again, you know, it's deeper than that. Whatever you were thinking about this show, I want you to say it's deeper than that, because that's exactly what it is. Let's bring up our first panelist. She's attorney Crystal James. She's been on The Cutting Edge before. She is a Tuskegee University guru. She's so powerful, man. She's the accomplished attorney, educator, leader, and motivator who has only begun to make a mark on the world. She was born in Broxton, Georgia, you know, and we talked about all that she does. She serves as the first executive intern to Dr. Kenneth Olin during her tenure as director of the National Institute of Health's National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. She heads up the president's COVID task at Tuskegee University and co-director of the Center for Health and AMP at Economics, Equity, and special assistance to the president of COVID-19, interim vice president of external affairs, and the general counsel at Tuskegee University. Whew.
I'm scared of her already.
Let's bring her up. Oh,
good afternoon, gentlemen.
You need to shorten your resume. Well, you can't do that because you've done so much. Good gracious. Hey, Attorney James, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. The most important thing that you said on this, I'm from Broxton, Georgia.
You know what? And that's something. And I, it's my fault. I hadn't heard of Broxton, Georgia before. And so it's almost like Arkansas, right? A Pine Bluff. Don't mess that up, right?
I mean, it's a little village, but we grow big spirits there.
Isn't that something? So
I hear you.
So tell me, in proximity to Atlanta, that's what I want to know. How far is Broxton, Georgia from Atlanta?
You probably get closer to it in proximity to Jacksonville, Florida. We're in the southeast corner of Georgia.
Oh, okay. So you're down near Florida. Okay.
Yes, I'm about an hour and a half from Jacksonville, Florida, about 30 minutes from Waycross, Georgia, which you may know where that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, from a really, really small village, but like I said, we grow big spirits, and it's very similar. It makes me feel very at home in Tuskegee.
Absolutely. Well, we are so happy. I don't care where you were born. I know you were born in Broxton, Georgia, but when you came to Tuskegee, you just made it home. So,
yes, sir.
So we appreciate having you here. I'm excited about this conversation today. I do know that we were on a panel just last week, and you did a presentation on the environmental issues and environmental injustices, right? And I was so impressed, Attorney James, with that presentation. And always, I've shared with you both on the cutting edge and outside of the public spaces how much I appreciate you. We really want to delve into this issue of the environment, because it has far-reaching implications, as we shared earlier, and so we look forward to it.
Mayor, we have people who come to the cutting edge and they learn, the themes that we're going to talk about, but they also learn history that our guests bring on. And Attorney James, you're bringing some history on the show right now for the people in the audience out there who have no idea of what that statue behind you represents. Can you tell them what that is?
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. What you see behind me in this virtual background is a picture of a statue that stands prominently on the campus of the Tuskegee University. It is the statue of our first principal, Booker T. Washington, and the statue is called Lifting the Veil of Ignorance. And this is a depiction of the slave, and bringing education to them is lifting that veil so they can rise higher in economic status, but also in health. We've been talking about at Tuskegee University since the days of Booker T. Washington and Monroe work, how intertwined it is, your health, your economic health to your physical health, as well as the type of environment that you can create for yourself and your family.
Wow,
thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing that. That is a very iconic statue. It's well known around the world, and its symbolism is so apropos even today.
Indeed.
So I'm appreciative that you asked that question.
The great thing is that at some Booker T. Washington high schools, I know the middle school in Atlanta, Georgia, has a replica of the statue, and so it is something that. As people remember Booker T. Washington, this is one of the statues that is very much indoctrinated as a part of his legacy.
Wonderful.
Wow. That is absolutely wonderful. All right, let's bring on up our next guest. Lisa Pollyak. She is an environmental engineer in the Office of Innovations, Environmental Health Sciences, and Engineering Doctorate at the U.S. Army Public Health Center. She currently works as an environmental engineer in the Office of Innovations, Environmental Health Sciences, and Engineering. She is working on a doctorate at the U.S. Army Public Health Center. She worked with the U.S. Army for 35 years, specializing in air quality and air pollution abatement. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our dear guest, Lisa Pollyak. How you doing?
Snap.
Hey, how are you doing?
Bring you up.
Absolutely. Bam, bam, bam. Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, Mayor Neal. Thanks for having me today. Thanks, Dr. Thomas.
this environment thing, and you've been in it for a while, so you've seen it from multiple angles. And so now your advocacy is rooted in your knowingness how important the environment is, right? And so we are so appreciative of your advocacy. That's what I want to start out telling you from the beginning, okay? Because I know that you're not here representing your office, you're here representing another kind of space. And we're going to talk about why you're here today as well, because this is dear to your heart, right?
It is very much so. I mean, to your point, I started working in this field before the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 were passed, and I've now lived long enough in this profession to see the fruits of that legislation and how important it's been to changing the impact of health on communities across the United States. But we're stagnating right now because those last amendments weren't passed in 1990. So we're 30 years down the road, and there's been no updates to these very important protections that have affected the lives of millions, because unlike other environmental exposures like water or soil or food, you can have discretion over whether or not you have that exposure. There's no discretion over whether or not you have to breathe the air.
Wow. That's powerful, because that's true. That's a very true statement. You can isolate yourself from a lot of other things. You don't have to eat that or do that, but you do have to breathe. And I don't know anybody alive that hadn't done that. So way to put it where the cows can get it, Miss Lisa Pollyak. I mean, that's powerful. All right. Let's bring up our next guest. She is the dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine at the Tuskegee University, Dr. Ruby L. Perry. I could go through all of her bio, but I want you to read it for yourself. What I want to do is talk about what I know about this young lady. She not only is she the dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine at Tuskegee, but she also served as the interim president of Tuskegee University. She is a community person that is rooted in the university. So you are likely to see her in the community church or in a community activity as you are to see her in our office at the veterinarian school. She is such an engaging person. I learned much about her in conversations. Not, you really have to ask her, because if you didn't know the multiple things that she's done, and she's been a pioneer, right? She's been a trailblazer in terms of her career. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our next guest, Dr. Ruby L. Perry. Hey, Dr. Perry, how are you doing?
I am doing one. And let me just do that myself too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give
everybody wants some snaps now.
Let's show enough give Dr. Perry some snaps. Hey, Dr. Perry, how are you doing?
I am doing just wonderful, Mayor Neal, and thank you so much for inviting me. And to my colleagues and Dr. Thomas, it is such a joy to join my colleagues in this discussion, conversation.
You mentioned something to me, and a lot of times people hear about FIRST, but you were saying that in your veterinarian class, you were the only African-American, right? In your veterinarian class, is that correct? Initially.
But no, and when I graduated from Tuskegee in 1977, there were 6 females in my class in Tuskegee.
Right.
When I went to Michigan State to do my residency.
That's when I'm talking about the Michigan State, right?
Yeah, when I went there, yes, I was the only one, and survived there through my residency, became boarded, came back to Tuskegee because again, I mentioned my leaders and educators at Tuskegee said, well, you got to always come back and give back. Mm-hmm. And so I came back, and then Michigan State said, well, then we're going to do the same thing. So they recruited me back there. So I've been bouncing back and forth between Michigan State and Tuskegee. I was at Michigan State for almost 22 years. Mm-hmm. And then it's time for me to come home and do some leadership kinds of things. And that's why I'm here today.
That's wonderful.
She's in radiology. So, if she were to go and do it in the private sector, she would be bawling and shot calling.
I hear you.
But she
with small
chose
animals.
But she came back to do service.
There you go.
Right. And so she caught what Dr. Williams and Dr. Bowie was saying, right? She caught it. More is caught than is taught. People learn best by precept and example. And they were both examples of that. I knew them both, and they were mentors of mine and dear friends of mine as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Perry, for engaging us in this conversation. Thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Good. Let's bring up the next and final guest for today. And that is Elise Torbett. Now, I'm going to have to do a disclaimer. Elise is like a daughter to me. She and my daughter are best of friends. They hang out together. They innovate together. They are go-getters. She is an environmental health scientist and founder of and CEO of the Next Step Up program, which is a mentoring program and helps to elevate young children so that they can prepare them not only for college, but for life. She's so much into character development, but she's tutoring those young kids, and she's bringing college students to work with the public school children to make sure that whatever mediation they need to be successful in school, that they are providing them that kind of leadership. She is a dear, dear, dear person and someone I admire so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me and welcome me, Elise Torbett.
And what a beautiful smile.
Absolutely. How are you doing? Unmute yourself. Thank you. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. I'm doing well this evening.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful story. You are from Tuskegee, right?
Yes.
And you are also a graduate of Tuskegee University. Now, if you notice there is some synergy around this. It's not a setup, Dr. T. I didn't do this intention, but she is not only a native but a graduate of Tuskegee University, and also went to get her master's in public management from the University of Michigan, right?
Yes, public health.
Public health, yeah. What did I say? Public health, yeah. From the University of Michigan. So you got Michigan State and the University of Michigan. So I don't know what this connection between Alabama going to Michigan. I don't know what it is, if that's something. But so good to have you. And we wanted to have you for the reason of your perspective. You are dealing with this right now. Tell them a little bit about what you do today.
Sure. So, our environment, we have environmental and social issues globally, nationally, and locally. And it's kind of interesting because we all live locally. So I work both nationally and locally. I run a campaign with this organization called the Union of Concerned Scientists that seeks to modernize our nation's energy grid. As I'm sure we'll get into in this conversation, energy, the way that it's made, the way that it's used, and the way that it's disposed, particularly harms Black people and people of color because of the proximity that of our communities, our homes, to often places where energy is generated or disposed, and also to many other facets. So like its pricing and all that, that stuff. But anyway, nationally, I work out of DC on energy, environmental justice, and climate change issues. But as Mayor Neal said, I live in Tuskegee. So I currently live in Tuskegee. And in Tuskegee, I see the issues I work on nationally being very connected because Tuskegee is a city that is beautiful, but it has a number of issues that kind of relate to the social determinants of health and quality of life that we really have to work on to improve such that people can live healthy, prosperous, fulfilling lives here. And so some of the work that I do with Next Step Up, which is an organization that I founded 12 years ago while I was a student at Tuskegee University, where we provide mentoring and tutoring to high school students, but we get them involved in the community, involved now in decision making through an organization that I just founded called the Macon County Youth Council. This organizing work that I do locally also helps ultimately to improve our ability to engage in decision making, engage in the allocation of resources, to improve youth among their pipeline, and ultimately improve quality of life.
Wow.
So that's just, I don't know. That's how
that's a snapshot. She does so much stuff, and so we're so appreciative. Let me move into this conversation. I want to start with Attorney James. Attorney James, I'm a novel in this space, right? I don't really understand it as you do. So I want you to kind of explain to me this whole notion of the environment, because I do know now when you think about how unhealthy many communities are, right? And to know that unhealthiness could be a result of some environmental influences. It's not congenital, it's derivative, right? And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about how the environment determines who you are, how long you live, what your income is, all of that. I want you to kind of put it where the cow can get it from me.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to. I think the simplest way to look at the environment in context is anywhere you live, work, and play. Right? So that's everything. That's all your environment. That encompasses everything from what you eat, where you work, where we spend a lot of our time, our waking hours is in our workspace. So whether you work in a clean or a dirty work environment has an impact on your health. Also, how you play. If you are in a community that has a lot of industry, when you're outside just playing with your kids, you're breathing that toxicity. As well as if you, even as a part of your play, enjoy fishing and other things, that fish might be contaminated based upon the runoff that might be in the area from industry. So then now you're eating those things. And so just in the sport of fishing, you're now exposing yourself, if you actually use it as what we call subsistence fishing, where you actually fish to eat as a part of your routine daily dietary requirements, then that's also an issue that you have to be concerned about what is that fish eating? Because that fish, and Dr. Perry can tell you a whole lot more about that, about from the animal perspective, but what that fish eat now you are eating. And what they've been exposed to, now you're exposed to. And it's been broken down and metabolized in some ways, but other things like the heavy metals, they don't get broken down. So we are also dealing with those. Well, when we ingest them, when we, if we have a house that has lead paint, but I also want to normalize, if I can, Mayor, what environmental justice is. This is the concept or idea that there should be fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people in deciding where those most dangerous things that we have in our environment are placed, are sited, if you will. And so having people that understand that we all should have a voice and understand where those points of advocacy are is what environmental justice is really about.
Well, Dr.
Mayor,
go ahead, Dr. T.
Yeah, I just wanted to make an observation about the importance of leadership. And Attorney James, you
froze some kind of way. I don't know what happened. We'll get him back. Once we got to unfreeze Dr. T. But anyway, let me go to, I'm going to let him ask that question later. But let me go to Dr. Perry. Attorney James made a salient point.
Did I come back?
Yeah, you're back. You want? Do you remember what you were saying?
You had a chance to work with Ken Olin.
I did.
And I wanted to ask you about leadership when you're inside a bureaucracy, and now the fullness of time. Maybe you're seeing some of that progress, but I want our young people to know that being inside these agencies, you can still make a difference. You can still move the needle. How important is leadership?
It is absolutely critical. They are at the best place to make decisions about what impact your lives. I got an opportunity in working with Dr. Ken Olden to see firsthand how his decisions about what agencies and universities get funded for certain projects will impact the communities that they serve, and how he was very thoughtful and deliberate about ensuring that the centers of excellence that were established were also had community components that were real. And he was very, very interested and supportive of collaborative research and community-based participatory research, which really got a lot of traction around the environmental justice movement.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Attorney James. Dr. Perry, Attorney James made a salient point. I want to talk a little bit about it. You being a veterinarian, there is a direct correlation between the health of our animals and the human health. And so if we have unhealthy animals, and many of us consume animal products, right, then that can impact, particularly if the animal is unhealthy, that can impact the health of the population. So that is an environmental issue as well. Is that correct? Unmute for me.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. And in addition to the direct impact of animals, in particularly farmers that have a livelihood of animals. So then if the environment is unsafe for them, then it's going to impact people, the farmers themselves, and their livelihood of taking care of the families. We have to think about also the humans, people, animals, and plants. So we all must live together and share that commonality that we depend on each one of those. So there is in terms of what Crystal James mentioned about eating meat. So if the animals are not taken care of, or they're impacted by the environment, then of course, then what we eat, we're going to be affected by that as well.
Right. Ms. Pollyak, I want to engage you here because we do know that despite what we would think is fair and equitable, we do not live in that space. That people who are marginalized are normally adversely impacted by decisions as to where toxic plants and others are located. And so they are normally in proximity, even as we look at interstates and where interstates are placed. Oftentimes it's away from the people who have wherewithal, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about the economics and who is impacted and whether or not there's some bearing on the decision making based on who's impacted. Is that a fair question?
Sure. No, it's a great question. I can think of, so I live in the city of Baltimore, proudly. I'm a proud Baltimorean. I've been here for over 30 years now. And I can think of a couple examples of how when certain decisions are made, neighborhoods are impacted, the people who live in those neighborhoods are impacted, and it's a downstream cascade of their health, their economy, and all the things that make their lives livable. And the two examples that come to mind are like where we place truck routes in cities, and specifically this sort of bears on a project that I'm working on right now, which is that York Road, which is one of the north-south spokes that's in Baltimore City, is a truck route. And so there's, the traffic has been measured there to the extent of 20,000 vehicles per day go up and down York Road. But just a mile to the west on Charles Street or on Roland Avenue, neither of those are truck routes. And those two north-south thoroughfares just happen to be smack in the middle of what's known as the black butterfly in the city of Baltimore. So the black butterfly is a term that was coined by Dr. Lester Brown from Morgan State University that characterizes where the populations are situated in the city of Baltimore, that on the east side and on the west side, there's concentrations of Black and African American citizens because of all different issues associated with redlining. And in the middle of that black butterfly is this like 2-mile wide strip of white residents. But you don't have, in that 2-mile wide strip, you don't have truck routes on Charles Street or on Roland Avenue, but you do have it on York Road, which is to the east. So those kinds of decisions influence where people live and the health that they have based on where they live.
So are you suggesting that this may be premeditated for people making those kinds of, I assume, policy decisions?
I don't know if it's premeditated, but I think people with resources and people in have a greater voice, or they have greater access. And again, like the second example that I wanted to sort of bring to attention is where environmental monitors are placed around the state. And what informs those decisions. I mean, from my perspective as an environmental engineer, you would place a monitor either where there's a problem or where there's people. But that's not how the monitors, for example, for air quality are situated around the state of Maryland. There's 25 air quality monitors in the state of Maryland, and there's only one for fine particulate matter in the city of Baltimore.
Wow.
So, I mean, how is that representative of people who are exposed or people who are living in situations where there's greater exposure to pollution? But we have air monitors in places like East Baltimore, or eastern part of the state and the western part of the state, where there's fewer people and fewer problems. So I don't think it's so much intentional, like trying to take away resources, but I think in some cases people have greater voice, and that greater voice gives them an influence on where things like roads are situated in some cases, or where environmental monitors are located.
Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
and as a policy decision maker, this in the seat that you sat in, that having that data to make your case matters.
Absolutely.
And so in the butterfly wings, in the black butterfly wings, they don't have the data to advocate for themselves. And I'm wondering, Ms. Pollyak, to what extent things like this Apple Watch I'm wearing and my phone become potential monitors of the environment, so that we can crowdsource and help people really get down to that neighborhood level. But I was really interested in your connection to the U.S. Army. And I saw the announcement about the new legislation around burn pits. And so, you can't decide who you're sharing air with, or even the quality of your air. We all have to breathe. How important was that to recognize that exposure was something that we needed to pay attention to, even though those service members had come back to America?
So you bring up a very timely issue, but I do have to make a disclaimer that I'm here in my private capacity,
right,
and not as a representative of the Army. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't want me sort of speaking off the cuff about
right,
an issue that's in such public view. But I mean, my personal view on that is that, the recognition of those health exposures is probably long overdue. There's no quality that there were lots of reasons why folks who were willing to, enlist in the service and provide those valuable protections for our country were in situations where they were exposed to all kinds of environmental toxins. Some of them were based on the places where they were deployed, and some of them are a result of the work that they do. But certainly, as a country, if we sent them there, we should follow up and take care of them if they were doing the work that we sent them to do.
right. I think that's a very good response, Ms. Pollyak. Let me ask everybody to unmute, because I want to kind of engage in a round robin around this. This is very important for me. I want you all to know how important this particular subject is, because I thought about it, and I'm saying that all of these people who have cancer or diabetes or respiratory challenges, much of this can be a result of their environment. And when you look at the disproportionate comorbidities for African Americans, there is a correlation, and that's what I wanted to talk. Ms. Torbett, I want to talk about: do we know what causes what based on the toxins that are being exposed? People are being exposed to. Do we know what can we correlate like they're doing with the burn pits? Can we now correlate? Do we know enough about it to know what it does to people if they're exposed?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and I have a two-pronged answer to that question. The first part of my answer, my first statement is that causation is really tough to prove. There's causation and there's correlation, correlation. So causation is really tough to prove. But do we know what arsenic does? Do we know what lead does? Do we know what it does to a specific organ, to a person at a number of different levels? Yes. Do we know what greenhouse gases do? Yes. So yes, I think the science is very clear and very advanced on the fate and transport, particularly the fate of a number of chemicals in the environment and on human health. And what's really tricky, particularly as we talk about environmental justice, is that we don't live single pollutant, like lives where we're exposed to a single pollutant. And in communities that are often burdened by environmental injustices, people are likely, their health is a result of their cumulative impacts, both potentially being exposed to negative features of the environment, but also lacking access to health promoting features, because health promoting features can mediate some negative features.
So we're talking about risk factors and protective factors kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
But yes, we can attribute certain exposures to asbestos, for instance. We can attribute that to a particular illness. But causation is tough. But we can quantify.
And I'm not even into, because I know the legal stuff and that kind of thing. But that's so I'm not even going to that. But we do know, because as the mayor, I was going to a lot of environmental justice conferences, and I was finding out that they know. They were saying, the people, the experts were saying, when you do this, then asthma in the community goes up exponentially, right? They said they can quantify that. Dr. Perry, help me out. Can we, you are in this space, can you quantify how the environment is impacting health, even if it's the health of the animals?
You want to unmute?
You're on mute.
I'm unmute. I did. So from a research perspective, there, as my colleague just mentioned, that there's a correlation. But if we look at the results of that, you can just compare. We got much data comparing different communities, the inequalities of health in various communities. That's clear. So the point is, what do we do about those? What do we do? Some of it, even sometimes, even if it's anecdotal. Even if it's anecdotal, and you know that that these conditions are occurring, then you have, again, we lack those advocacy groups and leaders to make a difference in those communities so that those people can. So the point is, sure, we have enough data. It's just that, are we going to bring the data to surface when we have, like for instance, when we have our clients? Well, clients have pets, and pets are like part of their family. Mm-hmm. So when the clients are not doing well, believe it or not, the pets are not doing well either. So when we talk to the pets and the animals, when we talk about pets in particularly, we have to also talk to the clients, because if something is going on with the pet, there's probably something going on in the home. That's what we refer to as human-animal bond relationship. So we not just treat the pet, we also have to talk about what's going on in the home and community of those clients as well.
You know, when we talk about, and I want to raise the issue, and we're going to bring Ms. Pollyak, we're going to bring the cremation piece up, because I know that's really to you. But I want to talk about water. We have aquifers, and we have water that runs to different places where we get our drinking water, and we bathe and all of that. And so if that water is contaminated, then that has an impact on us all. I don't see how people can think because I live, 3 miles away, that I will not be adversely impacted by a negative environment. Is that the case, or can it be targeted to one area? I can't hear you.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I would jump in.
Yeah, that was direct to you. Yeah.
I think that we definitely know, especially when you talk about contamination in water supplies, there's certain things in the environment that don't discriminate, right? Water's going to run up to the path of least resistance. And if it's a part of the water, if it's captured as a part of the water treatment process in that area, everyone who's drinking from that supply is going to be dealing with that burden. We do have water treatment centers that are set up to actually test those waters and make sure they're treated. And so that before they actually go out to as drinking water, that they are at a standard that will decrease the likelihood that you become ill. But we also know that people do way more things than just drink water. We have, like I said, we do fishing, we go onto the water, we go into the water, and we go boating, other ways that you get can be impacted by that water. But I also want to pick up on something that you were talking about in relation to air quality, and give a shameless plug to the Department of Graduate Public Health at Tuskegee University. What we train our students to do is to use that data, because there is a plethora of that data. But as Ms. Torbert indicated, what we don't have a lot of data about is how those accumulative effects impact people. And the problem with most environmental injuries is that they take many years to manifest themselves. So I might have been exposed when I was 15, but that cancer may not show up until I'm 45.
Right.
And so it's that causation part is really in the latency period, or the time it actually takes for that disease to actually manifest in my body. So now I got to remember what my 15-year-old self did or was exposed to that might have led to that. And that's usually where the causation problem comes in. But what we train our students to do at the Department of Public Health in the College of Veterinary Medicine at Tuskegee University is to actually identify those points of advocacy and help bring that information to communities that need them, especially communities in the Black Belt of Alabama who, like you said, they have an idea that something is going wrong here. Everybody in my family's had the same type of cancer, but they don't have a real idea of what caused it. But when you know something in your gut, that's what we call anecdotal information. But we train public health scientists to go and actually bring some of the empirical data that's more accepted in the research world, if you will, and help them understand and unpack how they can use that information to actually take to their mayors and to the city council and to the state environmental agencies, if necessary, to be able to change policies that impact their lives on a daily basis.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
We know that data is important, but as Attorney James is describing, the stories are important too, to put a heartbeat on that information. And I'm just, you've just kind of described the difficulty of, cause and effect. I get that. But I'm just wondering if we've come to a point where we have technology, wearable technology, where I can get my own accumulative risk. because a lot of the chemicals we're talking about have been approved in some way by just that chemical, but not that chemical and combined with what I'm getting in the air, what I'm getting in the food. So there's that cumulative risk.
Right.
How might we help people measure their own environmental burden? Is there a way in which I could look at a zip code, a map, and say, hey, I'm in a high exposure to X environment, and therefore I need to do Y? How can we help people navigate those environmental risk factors?
Go ahead, Ms. Torbett.
Oh, I want to jump in. I was actually on this really fantastic discussion about this earlier today at the University of Maryland's Environmental Justice Symposium that's held by my mentor, Dr. Scobie Wilson. So there are communities that are using air quality monitors, the low cost sensors, to do some really incredible work, both in monitoring air and water quality, and have developed communication networks as well around this information to share, to make short-term decisions. For instance, we talked about asthma. There's there's environmental called Air Now, but then there, at a community level, people are able to make decisions about having their children play outside or not play outside on a day where their monitors are saying that the air quality is bad.
Mm-hmm.
What's also really cool is the development of screening tools, screening and mapping tools, one that's held by the Environmental Protection Agency is called EJ Screen. But what's really cool is that states are now starting to develop their own screening and mapping tools as well. So beyond just the day-to-day air quality monitoring, which are really cool indoor. I used to work on, when I was at the Environmental Protection Agency, I worked on indoor air quality monitoring. While I was doing work at Tuskegee, I worked on some water quality monitoring for short-term water quality issues around Alabama. But also did some mapping, some GIS work. And GIS is complicated, but these EJ screening tools kind of break down some of those complex layers to help communities be able to map their proximity to toxins and assets and grocery stores and a number of different layers and features. So there are tools that are now putting the power in the hands of the individual and communities, and opportunities to use that information, the power of that information, to make decisions, to both present information to decision makers, and make the case around particular decisions, but also as citizens to just make a chank in decisions about how
you hit on a salient point, because and we talked about it before, and Ms. Pollyak mentioned it, is that certain people have certain power in terms of their advocacy, right? But if you don't know any better, you don't even know to advocate for yourself.
There you go.
Right. So for those who, I often say, once you know, then you owe. Right. Right. Why don't we have people like you guys who know better to say, hey, you all are in a bad space and this is what's causing it, and that you are likely to have some adverse effect health-wise and otherwise as a result of living in this space? Why can't we do more of that rather than having people maybe try to anecdotally assess what's happening with them? Let me go with you, Ms. Pollyak, and then I want to, Dr. Perry, I want to bring you into this, because that's something, that's what Tuskegee is about. It's about educating the public, right? Isn't that what this is about?
Ms. Pollyak?
Yeah, so thanks for that. So I wanted to build on what Ms. Torbert was speaking about these low quality, what they call citizen science sensors that are now available to give information to individuals in ways that we don't just have to rely on municipal authorities or government authorities anymore. And one of the ways that has been very successful are these low quality air quality sensors that are called, like by a company named, for example, Purple Air. And so even EPA has embraced the idea that they need more help than what they're able to get from their federal networks or from the state networks on air quality. Because as I mentioned, in Maryland, we only have a couple of dozen of air quality monitors for the entire state. And that, and part of that is because they're very expensive, like the individual monitors cost tens of thousands of dollars, and they're very labor intensive in some cases to keep running and to calibrate. But these citizen sensors that are available cost a couple of $100. I mean, you can buy them right off of like the internet. And
Wow.
you can mount them. You can mount them indoors, you can mount them outdoors, and they will give you real-time data that you can compare to air quality standards that tells you whether or not it's good for you to be outside playing, or if you should be outside if you have a pre-existing health condition, or if you're pregnant, or if you have any other sensibilities that would cause you to maybe, be harmed or have some kind of a health impact when the air quality isn't good. And as it turns out, one of those low-cost air quality sensors just happens to be in the neighborhood where they're trying to locate this crematorium. And we mined that data belatedly to find out that unlike the air quality data that is the official air quality data for the city of Baltimore, it is only measured at one place down by Hopkins School of Public Health, actually. The air quality that is 4 miles away from that in the neighborhood where this funeral home is trying to purchase a crematorium has violated federal air quality standards in 4 of the last 5 years based on data that was measured at one of those citizen sensors. So now we have information about what we know, that folks in these neighborhoods already have disproportionately high levels of health issues like COPD and asthma, which are directly related to air quality exposures. And then comes the data showing us that in 4 of the last 5 years, air quality levels have been so high that they've violated the federal standard.
Mayor,
go ahead.
I was just thinking about the citizen scientists and the low-cost air monitors. Ms. Pollyak, am I hearing you correctly? We could get those devices and deploy them through our barbershop and salon network?
We absolutely should be doing that.
Amazing.
I mean, EPA is doing that right now to augment their network of air quality because of the wildfire situation out in the Western United States, because they need more information about where those plumes are going. We know that when those plumes happen as a result of those fires, we're having air quality alerts as far east as Chicago and Baltimore as a result of those fires. And so EPA has embraced those sensors. They feel that there's sufficient quality that they have put them on their smoke and fire maps so that they show you on a real-time basis whether or not the air quality is healthy or unhealthy in the neighborhoods where you live.
That's excellent.
That's so interesting. If we can monitor the pollen.
Right.
Dr. Perry, if we could do that, we could do a better job in monitoring our air quality, right? Go ahead, Dr. Perry.
I just want to emphasize, and I put it in the chat, that's where the educational piece comes in, is trying to get that information out to the masses. And we have to do that one family at a time. And so when you hear something or hear something that people are saying, then we need to act on that, start asking questions. So we as educators have to find a way. I wish that we, back in the old days when we didn't have a problem going into communities and meet them at the center, wherever it is in the community, and talk about what's going on in the community and how we could, well, we said, save ourselves. You do that by coming together and sharing that information. Well, this is how I do it in my family. Oh, but this is how we've gotten away from that so much. And so we got to bring that back. So the question was, Dr. Thomas, when you said, how do we use technology? Everybody got a phone. Everybody got a phone, including a 6-year-old got a phone somehow. So how can we use that technology such that we can spread the word? And I'll just give you an example. When I served as acting president and the pandemic hit, I knew about coronavirus is moving from animals to people, but I didn't know that next step. That's the public health people and the environmentalists and the researchers. So I pulled all of them together, including Attorney James. I said, okay, we're going to get together. We're going to solve this. So Tuskegee stayed afloat. We stayed afloat because I brought everybody together. But we have to go out, even in the barbershops and the beauty salons, that the more knowledgeable they are, the better they are at saying, oh, by the way, why don't you look at this site? Or you have pamphlets or something like that. We really need to get back to the old way of bringing that information to these communities so that they can say themselves. We can have, we want to find, I'm from the South and I was actively involved in civil rights, actively involved in high school. And so I heard that all the time. We got to save ourselves, because if you sit and wait for somebody else, we're gonna be the first ones to go down the tubes. Yeah. So we got to find a way to distribute that information through technology, however we can.
Yeah, well, you mentioned something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ms. Pollyak and Dr. Perry, I am telling you, these polls behind me are the metaphor for how we get back to exactly what you're saying. And I have to tell Ms. Pollyak, no self-respect in Black Barber would ever say, I'll get you out in 10 minutes. And it doesn't matter how much hair you have, you're going to be there half a day. So we spend time, it's like a family gathering in a Black barbershop and beauty salon. Yeah. And it creates that atmosphere that Dr. Perry is describing. And imagine if those shops had these low-cost air monitors. What a powerful tool to put in their hands to advocate on behalf of the community.
And they're also trusted information centers, Dr. T, right? And so we can leverage that, because there's a barbershop in every community, right? There's a hair salon in every community, right? And so if we can partner, and that's where you get sustainability, right? Attorney James, right? When you can inculcate those things into institutions, that's always going to be there. Your churches, etc.
If I could just say, Mayor Neal, even if it's not in every community, it's somewhere in somebody's house.
Well, that's it. I didn't say it had to be legal. We got a lot of people who do hair. That's what they say in their house. So that's fine. It doesn't have to be a shingle up or some business like that. It could be in their back in their kitchen, right? My mother did hair for many, many years in her kitchen, right? In our kitchen. So that's fine.
Mayor, we got to get a pulse beat here.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to go to that. Dr. T, let's do the word cloud. Let me do this. Let's bring Meg up first, because I want to free her up so that she can help with the word cloud. And let's bring up Meg with the Public Health Minute, and then we will go to the word cloud, and then we'll bring up our other barbers and stylists and get engage them in the conversation.
Okay,
Meg with the Public Health Minute. Let's do it from that angle, and then you can be free to help out in the back.
Sounds good. Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to start out with our COVID numbers for the week, bringing us back to center. So right now, these are the totals. So in the past 2.5 years, 92.3 million people in the US have gotten COVID. 1,030,000 people have died from COVID in the past 2 years. We are at 223 million people initially vaccinated with either the J&J or the 2-dose vaccine. This is about 2/3 of the total US population. We are at 107 million people who've gotten their first booster doses. As you can tell, that's about half of where we should be. Next, please, Maggie. Okay, so I want to talk to you about where we are in terms of community spread of COVID. So when you look at this map, the different colors are where people are getting sick. So if it's a low number, it means that fewer people are getting COVID. And if it's that orange, then it's a dangerous level of people getting COVID. About half the country, 42%, is at this very high level. And about 39% is at a medium level. I'm going to talk you through what you do if your community is at a low level, a medium level, or at a high level. So take a look where you live on the map. Here in Maryland, we are in orange. Next, please, Maggie. Okay. So the way that the CDC levels work is they tell you what you should be doing when your community is at every different color. So you start at green. If it's low level, what should you be doing? You should be getting vaccinated and boosted. You should be up to date, everyone in your household. You should be keeping the inside spaces ventilated. So that's keeping windows open. If you have air filters, it's keeping those going. It's testing yourself if you feel sick and isolating yourself and quarantining yourself as you need to, as you get sick. It's having a plan for testing. Do you have rapid tests in your house? Do you know where they're doing testing? Have you called your doctor and found out if you got sick, are you eligible to get monoclonal antibodies? Are you eligible to get PrEP, Paxlovid, anything like that? These are all things you should have at all times done. So if your community is at that next level, at the yellow, you should have all the things in the low. And if you are at high risk or if you're immunocompromised, which I'm going to go into more detail later because it's a huge list of people who are at high risk and immunocompromised. But if you're on that list, you need to be more careful. You need to be checking and planning to mask inside. You need to have tests on hand. You need to consider whether you're going to ask your visitors to test before they come over to your house, and consider whether you want to test yourself regularly. At that high level, you want to be doing everything in the low, everything in the medium, and everyone should be wearing a well-fitting mask in public, even if you're vaccinated, even if you're boosted. This is at school, this is at work, this is at the grocery store. When it is at orange, everybody puts their masks back on. High risk and immunocompromised people, you need to absolutely be wearing respirators, N95s, and you are safer at home. Consider what is essential, what is not essential for you to be doing right now. Next, please, Maggie. So in your household, how do you plan for COVID-19 where we are now? Like I talked about, it's a six-part protection plan, the shield for your family. Vaccinate and boost. Keep your air clean in the house. That includes if people get sick in the house, having air filters so that when that person is isolating, there's an air filter in that isolation room. Again, calling the doctor for every member of the family and understanding if they get sick, what can you do? Having tests for every member of your family if you can afford it. Health insurance companies are still doing payment and reimbursement for COVID tests, for rapid tests. There are places to get them for free. And again, we are still looking for them for you in your barbershops and salons. If you are high risk, know whether you are high risk or not. I'll talk about this in 2 weeks, but are you high risk? And if you are, what's your plan? Make sure that you have those well-fitting and high-quality masks already in your home. So if you need them, you already have them. Next, Maggie. And then I want to talk to you about the CDC guidance changes that came out literally 5 hours ago. So the CDC has released new COVID guidance. What do we do now? So I want to talk to you about what they said before and what they are saying now. So before, the CDC was saying, if you've been exposed to COVID-19, you should quarantine. Now what they say is that you don't need to quarantine as in, physically distance yourself from your family, everything like that. But you do need to wear a well-fitting mask all the time for 10 days, and you need to test on day 5. Before, the CDC was saying that people should be testing regularly. If you're in like a high volume area where you're dealing with a lot of people, you should be testing regularly. They don't say that anymore. They say that you should just test if you know you've been exposed or if you have symptoms. Before, the CDC was saying that social distancing is one of our key tools in fighting COVID-19. And that was really at the beginning. If you remember, social distancing was all we had for months. And so now they're recognizing that social distancing is a tool, but we have vaccines, we have medications, and we have masks. So consider your personal risk and continue to social distance as needed. The CDC is not saying that social distancing is no longer necessary. I saw that as a headline. That is not what the guidance says. The CDC before recommended routine testing of students. It was called test. It was like test to return. They are no longer recommending that. So students should be testing at big risk events. So if you're in choir, if you're in theater, if you're in high contact sports, if for prom, for coming home from spring break, all of those things, they still say that these are times testing would be valuable. but they are no longer recommending routine testing of students. So
Thanks.
we're going to have a COVID update in 2 weeks, but that's where we are right now.
Thanks, Meg.
That's
Thanks
breaking
so very
news.
much.
5 hours ago, they released, and now our barbers and stylists have a frame for understanding what they should do. And I want our guests to know that we have placed in several of our shops these high capacity Corsi Rosenthal filters that we literally built with a box fan and duct tape, and they've been a huge hit.
Right. I think we've done some things like that as well. That right, Attorney James?
Absolutely. We have a team with our community task force that are building for our K through 12 system, as well as for churches in the area. So we have a whole team, and we have in some of our young people, some of the kids in the community are helping to build those boxes so they understand the importance as well.
Right.
You know, before we go to the cloud,
I ordered 14 of them. I ordered 14 of them for my college. They're being built now as I speak.
I think that the very process, Ms. Pollyak, of the people coming together to build these filters is a part of coming back to community.
Absolutely.
And it's intergenerational.
You're right.
Very important. Let's find out what we're doing.
Let's go on and get a pulse. We each show we do a word cloud. And what we do is we try to figure out how do we feel collectively. Dr. T, tell them how we do it.
So just for the next 60 seconds, you're going to use the chat. Don't worry about spelling. You're going to put a word in that best reflects how you're feeling right now at this moment in the pandemic. And then put in as many words as possible, one after another. Just keep them coming. Everyone out there in social media, you can use the Q&A button on your Facebook and add those words, and the crew behind the scenes will build the word cloud. And the more people that say a word, the bigger that word will be. And for the past 2 years, in every show, we've done this exercise, and it's been an amazing insight into where people are and how they're feeling. And Mayor, I just want to say, listening to our conversation,
and that's everybody, yes, everybody to do it, including the panelists.
Yes,
just add in what you think. Yeah,
that's
just
right.
Go and put your whatever word that best describe what you're feeling, how you're feeling right now. Put those in. Yeah, everybody. And you can put as many words in as you like.
That's right. And if you
don't worry
see a
about
word,
spelling, we got it. Yeah.
If you see a word somebody else put in that influences you, you can put that word in too.
Right.
But I'm listening to this conversation and realizing, Mayor, that this cutting edge information will literally be deployed in our shops like tomorrow, because we're getting this word out. And building these filters that the community can build. Ms. Pollyak, they're actually involved in improving air quality. And the science behind these Corsi Rosenthal boxes is amazing. And Dr. Perry, we had one in our one of our lead barbershops. And in the first 2 months, the Corsi Rosenthal box went from white to black. And we told the people, everything you see on the outside of that filter, you've been breathing. And it starts a conversation for how to protect oneself. And I think that's the other thing that needs to happen to get the conversation out of the academic clouds down to the community where people can understand how they can protect themselves.
That's putting it where the cows can get it, man. And absolutely correct. And so we are all in this together. And Dr. Perry, I think you mentioned it, even the animals and all of us, we coexist, right? And we need to make sure that everybody is healthy, because you're not healthy unless everybody around you is healthy, right? And so there's an interrelationship and interdependency that we have with each other. And we need to talk about that. And maybe that can translate to other things as well as we move on. Let's do a couple of things, Dr. T, while we are waiting on the results of the word cloud. Let's bring up a few of our barbers and stylists and see
absolutely
who we can do. You want to call up first? Let's just bring up. Let me to Sandra Jenkins. Is she with us today?
I see Katrina out there. I see
Katrina, bring Katrina up. Yeah, Sandra
I see
Jenkins.
Sandra Jenkins. There we go.
Bring
There's
Katrina
Katrina.
up. Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
we
All right.
got Pine Bluffs in the house.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Let's start with you, Sandra Jenkins. How are you doing today? Tell them a little bit about you and where we are, and tell us what you're thinking about this this environmental conversation we're having today.
Well, I'm doing well. My name is Sandra Jenkins. I'm a resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania since my childhood. However, I moved to Montgomery County, is where I own my business today, Naturalist Hair, located in the northwestern section of Montgomery County, just on the borderline of Philadelphia. My feelings about this discussion today is that the air quality matters in the barbers and beauty salons immensely. It's not only that we're dealing with what's going on outside of our operations, but also what we're doing, the type of work we do on the inside. And this is a wonderful conversation, just knowing the fact that we have probably somewhere up the pike that we will be required to have these little indicators in our salons to determine the quality of air, it was so incredibly important. As Dr. Thomas was speaking about the Corsi-Rosenthal air filtration system, we have one in our salon. And I have to say, it's not going anywhere, okay? It's going to say it. It's right there next to me, okay? It's excellent. It's a wonderful conversation piece, which that's how it started off in the beginning. However, it's becoming a very attractive unit because of the works that it does. As in Mike was expressing how the filters on the side of his air filtration system is turned black. Well, ours is hair, okay? Hair is on the floor. So all of that hair attracts to the side of the filters, hey, that's in the air. We're breathing that in. So we have to be mindful of every single solitary particle, even those that we can see and cannot see.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
You got a
Thank you
citizen
so much.
scientist in the house.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Citizen
telling you.
scientist.
And just finished a little something. Just tell them what you just completed and that you are now currently.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for reminding me of that, Marinier. I just completed the course with Southeastern Health School of Public Health with a certification in community health worker. So now currently I'm on like the verge to become completely certified across the state. However, I did receive my certificate.
Absolutely. Let's give us some snaps. Absolutely.
So happy to have that. And
absolutely.
Very, very, very useful in the salon. It will be. We're discussing it and everyone seems to feel safe of the fact that they're getting this information from trusted resources and we're looking to expand on it in whatever way we can.
We're so very proud of you.
Thanks.
Sandra Jenkins. All right. Okay. All right. Let's go to Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Get it right now.
Down there to Dorothy Reynolds. Hey, Dorothy Reynolds, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you all today, everyone?
Good. What's going on down in Pine Bluff, Arkansas?
Well, we're in the process of getting ready to have a seminar on this coming Saturday dealing with advancing health literacy, which is a community program. It was birthed from a minority health clinic that we conducted in December. And we realized at that event, we had 39 people to show up. And we discovered that many of them had health issues that they were not aware that they had. And so the city of Pine Bluff, the mayor, developed a group of people to work with the community in informing them of health issues and COVID-19 and what they need to do to be better, to have better health. and where to find resources. And so I'm assisting them because they assisted me. And we're trying to we're trying to have as many seminars as we can throughout the community. And we felt that next to the barber and beauty salon, churches was the next best place. So before us, they've done 2 churches, and we're the 3rd one. We're doing a collaboration between our beauty and barber shop and Church St. Paul, the church in Pine Bluff.
Okay,
And
good.
we were planning on having a booster clinic, but I was text Dr. Thomas and told him that we're having Mays and excuse me, and Beverly, what's his name?
Frankie Beverly?
Ricky, yes.
Mays and Frankie Beverly are going to
Frankie
show up?
Beverly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Old school. We all going to be
Old
dancing.
school, yeah.
And that's our competition for the shot clinic. So
that's a big that's a big competition. Thanks, Ms. Reynolds,
You're
for all
welcome.
you do. Let's bring up Dr. Cooper and Andre Russell, the man with the plan down there in the ATL. Hey, Dr. Cooper, how you doing?
Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. All is
Good.
well, thank you.
Good. Tell them a little bit, just a snippet about yourself, and tell us what you think about this, because we're the other thing is to Dr. Perry and Miss Pollyak and Miss Torbett, we got to do this more frequently. You just can't do, and Dr. and Attorney James, we can't just do one time. It cannot be an event, right? We have to have constant communication with people. So Dr. Cooper, just a little bit about yourself, and then go into that, because we have very little time.
Yes, Dr. Thomas is my mentor, and I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with his team of barbers and hairstylists. And what we see as an example, as we speak with all the barbers on this call, we see systems in action, going into the community, providing that insight, the resources, and leveraging those particular resources to bring about and effect change for better health outcomes. And it's just a pleasure to be a volunteer and to be able to work in this capacity, to be able to broaden knowledge and gain insights to improve systems of care.
Dr. Cooper has been essential in helping our barbers and stylists complete the requirements necessary to become certified community health workers in the state of Maryland. And that's the kind of infrastructure and support we provide them. That adds a whole layer of skill, legitimate healthcare members right there on the front line.
Exactly. And closing that gap that exists between care and access and quality.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. Let's go to the ATL. The brother has a barbershop in the busiest airport in the world. ATL.
Hey,
in
Andre.
Atlanta, Georgia. He has a barbershop in the Atlanta airport, not outside the Atlanta airport, in the airport. When I went in and saw that and know that a brother owned it, I mean, I'm just a little excited about that. I'm sorry. Andre Russell. Hey, man, give him a little snap.
Come on,
hey,
Russell.
man, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? And I really do appreciate your visit to verify, because a lot of people say, you don't have no damn airport. You're not doing that. So, and I know you were just passing through on your way from Hawaii home. And I said, why did he stop by? Verification is a wonderful thing. Thank you very much. But to add to what we're doing today, I've been taking some Zoom classes with Emory University, and I was looking for something to post. There's a resilience class that I'm trying to become more involved in through Emory, so that when we start talking on Thursday, I will actually have some positive input and some other things that are going on, so that we can talk about other than, hey, Andre, it's real comical for you to be here.
Man, you know, let me tell you something. We want to keep the barbershop mystique a part of this. We got all these PhDs and all that, but we want to keep it just regular, right? And so all of that's wonderful. So everybody is welcome into the cutting edge. Katrina Randolph, let's go to you. Katrina Randolph up in Maryland. What's going on with you? You know, you becoming a big celebrity. Dr. T always sending me stuff about different stuff they doing with you, girl. You got it going on. I want your autograph.
I know that's right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina Randolph. I'm up here in Maryland. I own a salon in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Been in business for over 22 years. I'm a certified community health worker through the state of Maryland. And I'm also part of this amazing...
We got to stop. Let's give you some snaps for that, because that's important.
Amazing network. But I wanted to say really quick, because I know time is short. This was a great informative conversation. About 4 years ago, we did an air quality and chemical exposure test inside the salon. And I was amazed that when we got the results back, that we found that the chemicals that we were using in the salon were very toxic. They did a urine specimen of all the stylists and barbers in the salon. And every chemical that we used, most of those chemical particles were found in our urine samples. So we realized that over time, those chemicals could be very harmful. So what me and my staff did, we just began to change the type of products that we use. And we were more mindful of the products that we purchased, not because they're well-known products, but because they are healthy products for us. And about a couple of months ago, Johns Hopkins School of Public Health came out to the salon and did an interview on what we thought about the chemical exposure, the air quality.
Continue to go to the bathroom.
In the salon. Say that again.
Andre messing with you.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, I was trying to talk and get my stuff out. But anyway, Johns Hopkins came out, the School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins came out and did an interview in the salon in regards to the chemical exposure and the ventilation systems in salon. So that was awesome to have that conversation with them in regards to what should you look for when you go to purchase a building for a salon or barbershop. Should it be location or should it be your ventilation systems? And a lot of times we go looking for location when we should really be concerned about the ventilation systems, the air quality, and how often this system is being, tested, cleaned, and all of that, because we are exposed to, like they said, so many things in the air. So I thought that was a good article that they wrote up on Trey Shade's Hair Studio. So when you guys get time, Google us so you can read that amazing article. But yes, this is definitely a great conversation. And as a matter of fact, since then, we have been wearing our masks not only to protect us from COVID, but to protect us from that chemical exposure as well. Wow, so thank you for powerful. This educational conversation tonight.
Okay, absolutely. Good. Okay.
I just want our guests to know how we bring the university science into the community in a way that they can take action. That was one of the first occupational exposures in a salon, published in a major journal, and now there's a nice video about it as well. And she has a Corsi Rosenthal box in her shop. That's a conversation piece. These are the ways in which we help people advocate for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Let's
Omar, can you believe what time it is?
I know it's time to go.
We got to get that word cloud.
We got to get it. That's what I'm saying. Bring the word cloud up. And let's see what we think.
Oh, look at this.
Hopeful, thankful, encouraged. Look, the larger the word, the more people said it.
That's right.
You look at it, connected, challenged, over it, inspired, inclusive, knowledgeable, nervous, empowered. Some people are angry, confused, motivated, enlightened, grateful, blessed, informed, exhausted, excited, and inspired. So, but you see where thankful is in the middle, holding it down, encouraged and hopeful. They are thankful, encouraged, and hopeful. And so that's how we are going to leave it. Let me tell you this, to Miss Lisa Pollyak, let me say thank you for such a wonderful insight and your commitment to to the community and your honesty about what you see. That's so powerful. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to meet you. And we invite you back in advance to come hang out with us again. Okay. All right. Attorney Crystal James, you just a regular. We gonna just have you. We gonna kidnap you and just have you just hang out with us all the time. You always have so much knowledge, and so you bring so much clarity to the subject, no matter what it is. So we are so appreciative to have you with us as well again, and we'll say again and again and again and again, right? Dr. Ruby Perry, thank you so much for not just what you do, but who you are and your commitment to service. It is obvious that you believe in people and you believe in serving people with excellence, which is the mantra of Tuskegee. And Elise Torbett, young lady, I'm so proud of you. You know, the whole community is just clapping and they are smiling.
University of Maryland alum.
And the University of Maryland alum. I mean, everybody want to claim you now. But you thank you so much, and keep doing the work you're doing, and keeping us informed about what's happening, so that we can have the requisite knowledge to advocate for ourselves. Dr. Perry said that, folk, you can't do for you what you need to do for yourself. And that's what we learned in the civil rights movement. Dr. T, thank you so much for all of what you do, and for your leadership, and for your vision, and your ability to say we're gonna do this despite whatever criticism you may or may not get. You are focused on doing this and making sure that the people get the requisite information. It was Rosa Parks that said the first step in any liberation process is that the oppressed must first withdraw their participation from their own degradation. And I agree with her that if we are to be saved, then we must be willing to save ourselves. And the only way you can save yourself is through knowledge, because freedom and knowledge are correlated. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And with that, thank you for joining with us on this segment of The Cutting Edge. And as always, I like to leave you with these two words. Remember that I love you with a perfect love. But more importantly, remember this: you got the power. Till the next time on The Cutting Edge, have a wonderful day.
See you next time. Bye-bye.